Hello everyone, and welcome to Counselor Feature Friday. I'm your host, Brian Urban. In these features, we hope to give you some simple tips, tidbits, and tricks to make your days easier and your patients happier. In this feature, we're going to talk about creating hearing aid claims using binaural codes. Counselor has a whole feature set built in to assist with this somewhat technical process, right? We want to make it simple for you to get the correct information in place and have the claim behave the way it's supposed to. All right, so we're going to show that process step by step. I'm going to begin here in a patient profile by creating a new invoice. Now, as just a quick side note, as you're creating an invoice, specifically for hearing instruments, you do want to select the audio visit that applies to that, the hearing aid fitting, right? So if you saw a patient today or several days ago or several months ago, and you completed the evaluation, and now you're creating the invoice for hearing instruments, you likely want to pair those up. That's primarily for referral type tracking, to track what the original referral source is and apply that to the purchase of the hearing instruments. But there's also some benefits there as well. So that's just a side note, but just something to keep in mind. Okay, we're going to go ahead and save, which will then give us the ability to add the items to this invoice. We're going to start by picking the type. Now, your list of types and items would be different than this, of course. This is just a test account. And then I'm going to go ahead and say we'll just pick kind of first on the list here. All right, we'll grab one randomly. Now that we have the device selected, we're going to see here two areas we want to focus on: include on claim and the CPT HCPCS area. Of course, if we're going to be creating a claim on this, we want to make sure we select include on claim. Okay. If it isn't selected already. And I should note that I'm going to create this invoice directly through the invoice feature. You may be creating this through a super bill. Okay, so the way this invoice is created is fine, right? That's whether you did it from the super bill or if you're doing it directly, it's going to have the same end result here. The same steps you want to take to make sure you're using binaural codes are the same, and that occurs really right here with the CPT and most importantly the HCPCS area here. So when you click on the drop down here, you should see a list of applicable codes for this specific item, right, for this specific device. In this case, because it's a mini right, sorry, it's coming up with the monoral and binaural BTE codes. If this is a cross device, then you'd have more options available. Okay, if you happen to click on this and you don't see HCPCS codes, or the ones you see don't apply to this device, then I would strongly encourage you to go into administration and then line item list and update your list of products and services, specifically in this case hearing aids, with the appropriate HCPCS codes. Okay, if you have any questions about that, the counselor support team can certainly assist. But what's really great about having those codes in place is you pop in and you see the specific codes that apply for this device. Okay, so of course you can always pick monaural. In this case, though, we're going to focus on the binaural code. And like I said, there's a whole feature set and tools behind the scenes that are working to help you get your binaural code in place properly on the claim. So we'll go with the V261, the most commonly used binaural code. Then we're going to scroll down. If you don't know this information at this point, that's perfectly fine. But in this case, we're going to say that at least we have some basic info. So we're going to say, okay, the left ear, here's our serial number, and we'll just skip past this other stuff and jump straight to adding this device. Now, because we selected a binaural code, what's going to happen is it's going to automatically copy over this to a new line item. So you can see it's already selected the item itself. It has picked the binaural code. It has selected the right ear, right? So because before we had entered the left ear. So all I have to do now is enter the serial number. Okay. If we go scroll to the bottom, what we're going to see is there's the original one, the left. We're now entering the right. Now, if you'd enter monaural code or you didn't have any HCPCS codes in place, it's perfectly fine. At any point when you're creating, invoice for hearing instruments, you can always click the copy option and it'll do the same thing as we just saw. It'll flip it over for the other ear, select the device, etc. Right? But the advantage of when you select the binaural code is it says, hey, let's just automatically copy this, right? You picked the binaural code, so clearly this is going to be a pair of devices. So it just saves you those clicks. So once I click add here, we now have devices in place for both the left and right ears. Of course, if you ever need to pop back in there and check something, you certainly can, but you should be in good shape from here. Okay. The reason I mention that you can edit this is that if you find later on, let's say you're the one creating this invoice and you don't know whether it should be a monaural or a binaural code. right? You can set it to whatever your best, guess is, or whatever you think. That's perfectly fine. And then if someone else on staff goes in later to create this claim, they can pop in here and change the code, right? So this isn't set in stone. It can be modified later on. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and leave those two devices as they are, both with the binaural code. And I'm sure what you're thinking is, hey, two binaural codes, that's bad. No, it's actually good. The counselor will reconcile this on the claim, because what happens with a claim where binaural codes are required is that the payer is expecting you to have one line of service, one item on that claim. So it'd be a quantity of one with the binaural code, and then double, or a sum of the price of those binaural devices, right? Versus monaural of V5257, you're going to have two items on the claim, which of course, quantity of one for each and the individual price for each. So what counselor is doing is saying, hey, if you pick this binaural code, we're going to do the heavy lifting for you. So when you get to the claim, and let's jump to that right now, we're going to sum this for you. We're going to make it right on the claim for you. So whether you're doing this right away or at some point later on, you go ahead and create your claim. You're going to see the same, filled in areas, insurance info, diagnosis. Now here, by the way, is that other advantage of having selected the visit at this point. When we get to the claim, what we'll see is it does pull the IC10 codes from that encounter and places it into this claim. If you haven't picked a visit, that's fine, right? You can obviously enter your IC10 codes at this point. No problem. You start typing and you can add them manually. But just another way that it might save you a few moments of having to figure this out, right? You can always see their codes up here by clicking on the pop-up summary. Okay, there are the codes from their last, encounter. Okay, and you can enter those manually. This just saves you that step. All right, but let's get to the billing tab. This is really where we see the fun. We get down here, we can see that there are the CPT explicit codes area, and there is our binaural code. Okay, so instead of having two items, there's one, right? And instead of having each device be the individual price, it is now summed with a quantity unit of one. Okay, so when you get to the point of submitting the claim, what's going to happen is, of course, it's going to create the claim in the way that the insurance company, the payer, wants it to be done, right? You don't have to sit here in the billing tab and try to fix things and move things around. You're establishing that via your line items, and then counsel will take that information, populate the claim screen appropriately so you can review that, and then when the claim is created, it will behave the way it needs to. Okay, of course, with any of these areas, we were very happy to review them, talk them through, answer your questions. So please, if you give us a call, email us, live chat us if we can assist in any way. So thank you very much for joining us for today's Counselor Feature Friday. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.